The earth groaned as if remembering something long buried. Beneath 2 kilometers of stone and silence, a light flickered where no light should be. The descent was slow. Mechanical ropes whining against the weight of curiosity and destiny. In the cold hollow of the cavern, a metallic gleam caught the beam of a headlamp and returned it with a pulse, as if alive. What mind shaped this? What hand placed it here before hands existed? The sky above was ancient, but the thing below felt older still. The air tightened, the ground thrummed. A heartbeat of something that had slept too long, and then the impossible shimmered. A perfect sphere, smooth, humming softly. It waited, not to be found, but to awaken. The air hung thick with metallic dust as the artifact's pulse faded into silence. Every breath echoed like thunder. The team began preparations to lift the sphere, but the tools faltered. Drills losing power, lights dimming without reason. Something unseen was feeding, remembering. Their voices lowered, instinctively reverent. The sphere no longer looked buried. It looked placed, waiting. The ground seemed to breathe beneath their boots, slow and deliberate, as though the cavern itself was listening. Then came a faint vibration, like a whisper from deep beneath the stone, repeating in rhythm with their heartbeats. They began the ascent preparations, but the chamber refused to let go. Every metallic clang reverberated unnaturally long, echoing back distorted, like sound traveling through another layer of time. Instruments malfunctioned one after another. The artifact's pulse returned, faint but rhythmic, almost like a countdown. Lyora felt it beneath her palm, cold yet alive. She withdrew her hand, realizing it was no longer her reflection she saw on its surface, but faces she didn't recognize. Faces watching her from within. The walls trembled once more, a low hum crawling through the air like distant thunder underwater. The lift rig failed mid-assembly. Power drained from every tool, every light, every heartbeat of machinery. A chill swept through the chamber. For a moment, the darkness was absolute. Then, from within that blackness, came a soft glow, rising like dawn beneath the surface of the sphere. It illuminated their faces not with warmth, but memory. Visions of landscapes no human had seen, constellations from skies that no longer existed. Something ancient was waking. Lyora whispered a prayer. Amir began to record, but the words he captured did not belong to any language spoken on Earth. At last, silence. Then one final pulse. Gentle, resonant, deliberate. The artifact released a vibration that seemed to rearrange the air itself. Their watches spun backward for a second, time stuttering in place. Lyora shouted for everyone to retreat, but her voice reached them a moment too late, echoing before her lips moved. The sphere brightened once, then dimmed, leaving the cavern drenched in afterglow. And deep within that stillness, as the echoes died, a second pulse answered, from somewhere far deeper below. The earth responded. The chamber sealed behind them, but the pulse followed. 2 kilometers above, under floodlights and sterile air, the artifact rested upon a steel platform surrounded by instruments not yet built to understand it. No rust, no erosion. Its perfection mocked time itself. When the team powered the containment field, every monitor froze at the same instant. 0, 0. The clocks had stopped, but their hearts had not. What they brought from the depths was older than the earth that buried it. And it was awake. The first anomaly came without warning. A pen falling upward, suspended mid-air before drifting slowly back down. Air currents reversed, sound lagged behind speech. Their instruments captured what looked like microscopic storms, swirling around the artifact's core. The data was impossible. Isotopes that shouldn't exist, molecular bonds forming backward through time. The artifact did not belong to any known matter. It existed outside decay. Whatever it was, it refused to age. Night fell, though none of them remembered when. The laboratory lights flickered in sync with the sphere's pulse. Amir's readings showed a field of radiation with no decay curve, perpetual energy feeding on itself. Elena deciphered a pattern hidden in the artifact's glow, not random but sequential, like a heartbeat forming code. Lyora began to understand. They hadn't found an artifact at all. They had disturbed a mechanism still performing its original task, one that had never truly stopped since before humanity began. At precisely 3:16 a.m., the sphere projected its first image, light refracting into the shape of a human silhouette. Blurred and fluid, the team froze. The shape moved, raising a hand in perfect imitation of Lyora's gesture. When she lowered her arm, so did it. Not reflection, not projection. Something looking back. Amir whispered that the readings showed no external light source. The image was forming from within the object, encoded in dimensions they couldn't measure. And as it faded, words appeared briefly on the glass. We remember. When dawn came, the power grid collapsed for 12 seconds across the entire facility. Every clock reset. Every recording rewound itself to the moment they found the sphere. But in that instant, the artifact's pulse synchronized with something beneath their feet, a resonance spreading through the ground. Earth itself had begun to answer. Lyora stared at the readings, identical energy signatures emerging from multiple points around the planet. There were others, buried, waiting. And the countdown had just begun. The artifact had stopped pulsing, but the silence was not peace. It was attention. Lyora's data scans revealed thousands of shifting symbols crawling across its surface, rearranging like living language. Each curve, each mark formed and dissolved, leaving traces that no algorithm could predict. Amir realized it wasn't language, it was movement. Elena watched the playback frame by frame, discovering that the pattern, when layered, formed a map of the heavens. Not the sky above them, but the sky as it appeared 100,000 years ago. When Elena traced the constellations to their origins, the coordinates pointed not to stars, but to Earth itself, specific locations across continents. Perfectly aligned in time, the pattern formed a geometric sequence connecting ancient monuments, the pyramids, Göbekli Tepe, Tiwanaku, and one site unmarked on any map, deep in the Pacific. Amir's voice trembled as he translated the numbers, a code linking the pulse frequencies of the artifact to planetary resonance. The Earth was not random. It had been tuned. The message deepened. The glyphs now appeared as sound, a low harmonic pattern woven through static. When slowed, the vibration formed words too ancient for translation, yet understood in instinct, below, beneath. Remember. Lyora's breath caught. The artifact was communicating not through symbols, but through emotion encoded in resonance. Amir called it temporal speech, a conversation written in the physics of time. For a moment, every monitor displayed the same phrase. The builders awaken. Satellite triangulation confirmed it. The final coordinate pointed to a region of the Pacific where no land should exist. Yet sonar scans revealed structure. Massive geometry buried beneath silt and salt. Amir called it an impossibility. Elena called it home to myths. The decision was made. They would travel there. But as they prepared to leave, the artifact pulsed one final time, projecting an image of the ocean floor, and beneath it, a shape identical to itself, larger, dormant, waiting to rise. Night again. The artifact now silent, its glow fading like a closing eye. Outside, the wind rose, a low, rhythmic howl that matched its last pulse. Lyora watched from the observation deck, feeling the weight of the planet hum beneath her feet. The map still glowed on the wall behind her, its final coordinate pulsing faintly, calling them to the deep. Whatever this object was, it wasn't warning them. It was summoning them home, to a place forgotten by time itself. At dawn, the artifact began to breathe again. Every pulse spilled outward, like ripples through invisible water. The laboratory lights dimmed, then brightened, but not in sequence. One part of the room seemed hours ahead, another moments behind. The team felt the shift in their bones. Voices arrived seconds before mouths moved, gestures trailed behind thought. Time was folding, layering itself over the present. Somewhere inside those folds, something watched, patient and aware. The recordings no longer matched memory. Amir replayed a sequence showing himself entering the room before he had arrived. Lyra touched a monitor and felt warmth, as if the screen remembered sunlight that had not yet reached it. The artifact pulsed again, each beat stretching seconds into minutes, then snapping them back. Time had become elastic, obedient only to the sphere's design. They realized they were inside its field, and the field was growing. Then came the voices, echoes from nowhere, layered whispers repeating their own words out of order. "Leave," one said. "Remember," said another. But the tones were identical to their own. They were hearing themselves across fragments of time, speaking from what might already have happened. Lyora's pen lifted from the table and began to write by itself, lines curving into shapes she could not read. The artifact hummed, lower, deeper, closer to heartbeat than sound. Power systems collapsed again. Emergency lights pulsed red, each flash revealing motion that shouldn't exist, objects flickering in two places at once. Amir tried to anchor the field with a frequency counter. It responded by multiplying itself across the room, countless identical devices appearing for a heartbeat, then merging back into one. Time was not broken. It was overlapping realities trying to occupy the same breath. The sphere had turned the lab into a crossroads. For a moment, everything stopped. No light, no sound. Just the slow awareness that time itself was holding its breath. Then, in a single unified pulse, the world snapped back into rhythm. All data screens displayed the same coordinates, the Pacific site. Beneath the numbers, a single phrase burned across every display. "Enter the field." The sphere dimmed, and the silence that followed felt infinite. Whatever lay beneath the ocean was calling them through time itself. The Pacific stretched like a silver mirror, endless and silent, hiding secrets that had slept for eons beneath its waves. The expedition vessel drifted above coordinates that had existed only as numbers moments ago. Sonar pings returned shapes that defied human logic. Massive, geometric, perfectly aligned with star charts from the artifact. Every breath aboard the ship carried anticipation and fear. They were approaching a city older than memory itself. And somewhere deep below, the ocean waited. Underwater drones descended, and the first images appeared on screen. Structures rising from the ocean floor in impossible symmetry. Towers aligned with stellar coordinates, walls engraved with symbols identical to those on the artifact. The current swirled unnaturally around them, as if the water itself acknowledged their arrival. Every frame seemed to pulse with life, ancient energy thrumming through stone that had endured millennia. The team deployed submersibles to descend closer. As they neared the structures, it became impossible to ignore their scale and precision. The walls were carved with celestial maps, identical to the shifting patterns on the artifact. Every angle was mathematically exact, every surface polished beyond natural wear. Lyra realized they were not looking at ruins. They were looking at the blueprint of a civilization that had mastered time itself, and whose echoes had survived beneath the ocean's weight. Strange resonance thrummed through the water, low, hypnotic, like the heartbeat of the ocean itself. Instruments registered impossible frequencies, bending metal and stirring sediments. Lyra touched the viewport as if feeling the pulse through her fingers. The artifact's glow, transmitted to the submersible console, synchronized perfectly with the vibrations. The ocean was alive with memory, and the city beneath it was responding to their presence. They were not explorers. They were guests. As night fell on the ocean's surface, the artifact pulsed in their hands aboard the ship. A projection illuminated the water, connecting the submerged city with monuments on distant continents. Lyora's heart raced. They had found the nexus of a civilization that had shaped the world before history began. And now, as the artifact synchronized with the structures below, it became clear. The city had never been abandoned. It had been waiting, patient, watching for them. As the artifact pulsed over the ocean, light spilled into the night like molten silver. Suddenly, the water itself became a canvas. Projections rose from the waves. Holographic visions of cities, landscapes, and humans moving with grace unknown to history. The team gasped as they realized these were not mere images. They were memories encoded into the artifact. Moments of a civilization that had lived, built, and vanished long before, written record. Time stretched before them, revealing a world that had existed, yet could not exist. The visions deepened, showing their inhabitants performing tasks that defied understanding. Shaping stone with precision beyond modern tools, aligning entire cities to stars. Measuring time in cycles unknown to modern calendars. Lyora felt vertigo as the artifact projected entire lifespans of individuals, their movements graceful, purposeful. Every heartbeat, every gesture, resonated with a rhythm that pulsed through the ship and through her own chest. This was a civilization that had mastered time itself, and it was sharing its memory. Then came the most startling vision. A ritual of knowledge transfer, where humans and massive metallic objects, the artifact's predecessors, interacted, shaping not just structures, but the flow of history itself. Lyora's mind reeled. Every step they had taken, from excavation to oceanic discovery, was a thread in this tapestry. The artifact was a messenger, a repository, a key. They had not found a relic. They had found a civilization's legacy encoded in light, waiting for its message to be understood. Time itself seemed to breathe as the artifact revealed the city's knowledge, mathematics of orbit, energy resonance, and temporal engineering encoded into every structure. Lyora saw rivers flowing backward, stars rising in reverse, all synchronized with the civilization's own measurements of history. Amir's instruments recorded readings impossible to reconcile with modern physics. This was not fantasy. It was a language older than words, older than human memory, a civilization that had understood the universe in ways they could scarcely imagine. Finally, the artifact dimmed, leaving only echoes of the visions in the minds of the team. Lyora exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of revelation settle like a stone. They had glimpsed the full mastery of a civilization lost to time, yet preserved in resonance and light. The oceans, the monuments, the stars, they were all part of a pattern. And the final realization came. The artifact was not merely a relic. It was an invitation, a map, and perhaps a warning. Humanity's history was only a fraction of what had already been written. The world trembled quietly. Across continents, magnetic anomalies mirrored the artifact's pulses. Monuments, long dormant, began resonating with frequencies recorded in the Pacific. The team watched from the ship as storm clouds formed in perfect alignment with ancient star charts. Lyora understood. This was no accident. Humanity's timeline was part of a cycle, a rhythm designed and measured eons ago, and the artifact had been waiting for its moment to awaken it. New satellites revealed the impossible, ancient sites lighting up in sequence. The pyramids, Göbekli Tepe, Tiwanaku, and now the Pacific ruins. Energy surged along invisible lines connecting them. The artifact's pulse accelerated, and a pattern emerged, a circle of resonance encircling the planet. Lyora's voice trembled as she whispered what they all knew. The civilization that had created this rhythm was not gone. It had merely paused, waiting for the cycle to repeat. The artifact's light spread across the ocean, rising in waves that danced in perfect synchronicity with the ancient sites. Time seemed to bend, layering present and past into a single rhythm. Shadows of structures not yet seen flickered beneath the water. The team understood. The builders had designed not just monuments, but a network of influence, a resonance meant to survive cataclysm, waiting for the right moment to return. Humanity was on the threshold of a revelation older than history itself. A low hum vibrated through the water and the air, growing until it felt like the heartbeat of the planet itself. Every monument pulsed in harmony. Lyra realized that the cycle was near completion. The builders had not vanished. They had embedded themselves into the earth, into history, and now were awakening. The artifact was the key, the signal, the call. And when the final pulse struck, the world would remember the builder's presence, whether it was ready or not. The final pulse arrived. Light erupted across the ocean and sky, connecting past and present, monuments and waves, human and builders. The artifact's hum became a song, a resonance that the planet itself seemed to echo. For a fleeting moment, the team glimpsed what had been hidden for millennia. Structures rising, civilizations remembered, time bending to reveal a forgotten truth. Humanity's history was no longer linear. It was a cycle, and the builders were returning,